All right, it's Bali. It's Health Max score, Vitality score for Bali. Love Bali. Kind of like a second home almost for me. I spent a lot of time there, probably cumulative over a couple of years. Really got ingrained in a couple of communities there I'll talk about, but overall love Bali. But we'll see the Vitality score I'm going to give it at the end. They can be two different things. They can diverge in a lot of ways. And in many ways, things change as we'll go through over a couple of years. But hang on to your belts here. We're going to have a great time talking about it. I'm going to give you a lot of real good insight from someone who's been there for a long period of time and on every which way forward that these 10 criteria encompass, which is a lot. So let's just get right into it. Waste no time, with no further ado, as they say, whatever that means. But let's get into number one is cost of living. We're going to go right out of the gate hitting the big one. And a couple of years ago, this would have been rated really high. It was so much cheaper, in my opinion, in my experience. But I think as it became more popular, more people started coming in, and a lot of expats got into the real estate game. And it's kind of a nuanced game there, because I know some guys stayed away from it for this reason, but other guys weren't scared by it. But you never really own the land. It's a leasehold. Typically 30-year leasehold. So you're not going to end up with that piece of land at the end of 30 years. It's almost a rent. So, but for a lot of guys it didn't, and for the rents they were getting it, I think it made some sense. I think the ROI the cap rate was definitely warranted the investment. But with that investment, things have gotten more crowded, less and less places to rent and more people coming in. It just it's a recipe for rising prices when it comes to rent. And I'm going to go through the rent graphic, but I think these rent graphics, in my opinion, as I look back over them, I think they're all a bit low. So I spent most of my time in Canggu, largely because of the paddle community. The whole paddle scene really got addicted to paddle. But Canggu is the busiest area. But it's not the most expensive. I'm going to get to that, but you can find some deals around Canggu, and you can go lower end on the budget if you really look hard. And you don't need a kitchen. You can do a shared kitchen. You can do sort of guest house kind of thing. I've done that too. But that can be all right, and you can get by probably. I know a friend of mine who's actually there now. He's paying about $350 a month for this place. But I would imagine it's pretty Spartan. It's a guest house situation. Most of the time, the guest houses I think now are going to be around $650, $700. I think I was paying for mine at one time $600 for a guest house, but it was a perfect location right where you want to be. But you can also hunt and find some places outside of Canggu. Kadungu is a real growing area. It's about a 20-25 minute motorbike ride out there, and I would go out there quite a bit. But it's picking up now. People are on to Kadungu like they sort of got on to Sese, which is another area that now is just really the top's blown off the prices there. A friend of mine I know, Austrian guy, he got into some condos, and when I asked him maybe a few months ago what he's charging 50 million, which, what is that? It's about $3,000, maybe a little over $3,000 a month. And this is for a sort of a one bedroom with a 2-story one bedroom. It's really nice. It's brand new. It's got a little pool, a little garden area outside. It's really nice. Nice kitchen. But I think that's kind of indicative of where it's going. But man, that's more than I'd want to pay there. But that's Canggu. That's Sese, which is kind of really just a part of Canggu, just maybe on the outside. And it's growing a lot. The roads aren't very good out there in a lot of places, but Sese is a cool area. A lot of people love it out there. A lot of people are moving out there. And then if you look around at Uluwatu, everything is going to be up, I would say, 25% higher, maybe a bit more. And I would say the vibe there is a bit more mature, as Canggu is really probably young vibe. It's a lot of 20s, a lot of 30s people, and Uluwatu is probably a bit older, maybe a bit more in the 40s. You're getting 50s. But Uluwatu's, it has nicer beaches, nicer views, kind of a little more upscale. It's coming online with paddle as well. They kind of started later than Canggu after it just exploded. I think when I initially got in Canggu, maybe they had 6 paddle places. I would hate to guess what it is now. It's probably up to, I would be surprised if it's up to 20. And I knew a guy actually who opened a couple of those places, and he did it in Jakarta and Canggu, but in both cases, he was the first guy on a particular street, and then weeks, months later, they're surrounded by different paddle places. So it's really taken off, but that figures in a little bit in the cost of living, because the cost of paddle obviously I think it's risen a bit, but it's not terrible. You can play a paddle game. If you play with 4 guys, you're probably looking at maybe $12. Then you always have to chip in on the balls. Before you know it, you've spent $15. And if you get a couple of coconuts, then you're looking, all of a sudden you're at $20. What used to cost when I first got there, I'd say it was half. So everything has just risen in Bali, is my main point I'll make with this. Everything around is risen, but and all that figuring into cost of living. Like I say, the rents are going to go up. There's another part of Bali on the other side, away from Canggu, called Sanur. You can find better prices there, but I've seen places there that are nice places, but you're looking at 40 million. So you're talking $2,500 for a really nice place with a pool, with a sort of enclosed area with the pool. It's nice, and you can always hunt a little bit outside the main areas. Over there, you hunt away from the bypass, it's called. And then from the bypass into the beach is where you get more expensive. But from the bypass, once you're on the other side of the bypass, you're probably looking at 15, depending on how far you go out, at least 15 minutes to the beach. So, and then food-wise, I think everything has also gone up. It's ticked up. And to pay for some really healthy food, it's going to cost you. There are a couple of great little cafes I love over there called Motion Cafe. Really healthy place, but I can't get out of there for really less than $15 most of the time. Whereas I think used to be I could get out there for less than $10. So everything's going up. And of course the gyms there, we'll get into the fitness culture, but gyms are fantastic, but they're also expensive. I mean, I went to a place called Body Factory. It was $250 a month. You do a 3-month membership, you can get it down to $200 a month, but you have to pay $600 up front. But it's top of the line, it's top notch, great recovery. Gym, I wouldn't necessarily as top notch at Body Factory. It's a bit older, but the food's great, but the food's a little more premium on the foods, and so healthy, so clean. All of it factors in. And then you don't really find, like where I'm in the Philippines now, you can go out and go to a lot of night markets. You can go to just fruit stands, vegetable stands, or everywhere. You don't have that in Bali. Everyone really has to shop at the grocery stores. And you get to what they call the bula price. The bula is the foreigner price. And it's skyrocketed in the grocery stores. And I got to the point where I just had to stop buying certain things. I love blueberries, but I got to a point where I'm not going to pay $5 plus, even more, for 20 blueberries in a little pack. But that's where it's gotten to. And so I'm saying all this to say it's really gone up. I'm trying to think of other ways to explain it, but like I say, if you want to go outside, if you want to be away from the main commerce areas, you can cut back a little bit, but you really don't want to do that. You want to be where you have all the conveniences, where everything's so close by. That's one of the beauties of it, is the way they built it out it was kind of haphazard, but it kind of worked out that everything's sort of conveniently within, especially in Canggu, you can go anywhere really within 10 minutes. It's all really enclosed. Uluwatu, within that main area, kind of the same thing. Sanur, things are a bit more spread out. Everything's kind of on the beach walk. Sanur has a nice beach walk. It's a beach sidewalk that runs right down the coast. They have a mall there called the Icon Mall, big mall if you need to shop. It's a bit more of a problem in Canggu. There's no mall. You have to drive usually 40 minutes, 30 minutes at least on a motorbike to go to a mall, movie theater, any of those other conveniences that are so common, maybe in a place like the Philippines where the malls are everywhere. But so those are things to consider. But with all that said, the cost of living out of 10, I go 6.5 now. And as I mentioned, 2 years ago, it probably would have been an 8.5. And I think it's sort of a community groundswell there to try to get the prices down, and people are trying to check people, stop paying so much for these places. But you can't stop people from doing that. It's people that come in, especially, and maybe they don't know really the lay of the land, and they're just going to pay what in a place they want to be, and they have the money, and things just kind of get bid up, and that's where we are now. Things have hopefully going to level out at some point soon, but I'm going to give it a 6.5 overall now, which is surprising for Bali. It used to be one of its key key attributes. And you have, like I say, so much Western influence there, so many Western places, which is one great thing about it, with all these conveniences and the food and everything else that the Westerners bring, and that they kind of think things through that other Westerners, expats would want. It's there for the most part. So much convenience, but you're paying for it, and you're paying a premium. Let's say even eating out, steak, a good steak is a bit harder to come by. And there's a really good steak place, I can't remember the name of it right now, there in Canggu, but for two people, I couldn't get out of there really for less than $200. Same thing with sushi. There's a really good, I think it's called Mrs. Fish. I couldn't get out of there for less than $200 for two people. And there aren't a lot of fish options in Bali. That's another thing to be aware of. Is Philippines, you've got so much, just a wide assortment of fish, fresh fish every day. Bali is just not, it's hard to get fish. It's hard to find good fish. So if you're a big fish eater, know that going in. And if you're a big steak eater, big meat eater, it's a bit of slim pickings there. There's a great place there called Meat Emporium. Just a butcher, order up what you want. It's Australian steak. It's a good steak, but it's not the greatest. I mean, their sausage are really great. Their bangers, as they're known, are really good, and they have some good sweet potato fries. It's a good place, and it's very, very busy. And they just grill it right outside. The butcher's inside. They put it on the big grill, and it's really, I like it a lot. And you can get out of there for about $20. It's not crazy. It's not like the other steak places, the swankier steak places, but just have that in mind too. But it's harder to find a good steak. A lot of times you eat at a place that's maybe mid-level, and you order a sirloin steak or a good cut of steak, and it's just not, it's not the same. It's not like a Western steak, in my estimation. That's my opinion. But after being a couple of years, I looked around a lot. I was looking for steak all the time, looking for fish, steak. So it's a bit more sparse. But like I said, they have some healthy, really healthy cafes that have some decent meat. And that Motion Cafe, they've got a couple of those in Canggu, but they have a decent meat there. But they have beef liver there, which I actually like. I like to eat organ meats, and they have that. But it's a really strong beef liver, very gamey. Anyway, let's just arrive at 6.5. There was another place that I really liked, that juice. You could buy juice there. They put it all in glass bottles, straight juice. But even that place, I remember they went up. So I was spending $10 a day in juice because I was kind of hooked on juice for a while. But things add up. At Body Factory, I'd go there every morning. I'd get 3 different drinks. At that time, I was drinking a coffee. I was drinking a celery juice, sort of with turmeric. I forget what they call it, and then there was another drink I was getting. I was doing a bone broth. I was doing maybe a beef or chicken bone broth. But all 3 of those, you're running $10 every morning. I'm spending $10 just before I've even worked out, even had any meals. And then if you're going to eat there at Body Factory, for instance, I couldn't eat for less than maybe 300,000, which was about $20, because I would get meat and a couple of things. But another thing to keep in mind, but you boil it all down, distill it. I'm going on and on, but I just wanted to explain all the different variables. But 6.5 out of 10, I think it's a solid. I think I'm comfortable with that score. And then let's move on to the climate, weather part of it. So obviously you're in a tropical environment and you're near the equator. You're not going to get a big variation in the temperatures. I really like that. It can get rather hot, but most of the time you're mid 80s, low 80s. So the weather, I like it. It's really great. But as part of that, the beaches, especially around Canggu, in Uluwatu, you have some nicer beaches. But in Canggu, the beaches really are not, most people don't go to the beach much because it's black sand. And that sand gets so crazy hot. And Sese, really nice place, but those black sand beaches, it's just right down the beach from Canggu, from another part of Canggu called Pereranan. And man, those black sand beaches, it's just not, I don't know, the water is not great. The water is kind of muddy, and it's really a strong tide out there. I got caught in a rip tide one time in Pereranan, and so it's just not something. It's kind of crazy that you're right there on an island with such a access to the beach is right there, but you end up where you don't go to the beach. It was kind of amazed me after I noticed after a while. I haven't been to the beach in forever, but the beach is not out of this world great. Like in the Philippines, you have some of these most beautiful white sand beaches you ever want to see, and the water is so crystal clear and temperature's great, and it's a whole different experience, really. So in the Philippines, there's much more. If you can get near a beach or be near a beach, it's so much nicer, I think, than Bali. So overall, and then the rainy season I went through a couple of really torrential rainy seasons where it's just coming down, cats and dogs repeatedly. And it can get that way. It can really you get soaked and before you know it, it's raining again. Every day it's raining. It can be a rough rainy season. I know I've heard, I think a couple of years ago, they said it was a really sparse rainy season, but a couple of them that I went through were pretty rough. They were wet in a big way. Mucho mojada, I guess it would be, yeah. So that's something to think about. And a lot of times people might go somewhere else. They might go to Thailand, which is kind of an opposite rainy season. Go up to Thailand, come back. Go somewhere else in Southeast Asia and come back. So that's an option. A lot of people do that. Some people, I know a couple of guys that would go Bali and then they go to South Africa, go to Cape Town during the rainy season. Which, if you could do it, if you don't mind traveling that far, it's a great two-way play there. But overall, with the weather, I think everything considered, and on the motorbike, a lot of the time when you're in traffic, heavy traffic, which you get especially in Canggu, but Uluwatu, there's really only one road that goes in. You can get loaded in traffic there. Denpasar. So you've got Canggu here, you've got Sanur here, Denpasar kind of in the middle. You go through super loaded with traffic, and you can just get locked down even on a motorbike at times. You can just sit there and just burn and bake. You feel yourself getting baked on that motorbike. So at times it can get super hot, but overall on the weather, the climate, I'm gonna go with 7.5 just because it is consistent, it's warm, you're on the equator. I can't dock it too much, but at the same time, the rainy season can wear on you a bit. It can get really hot, it can get, so I think 7.5 is the right number. Toyed with 8, toyed with 7, 7.5 is it. Moving on to healthcare access. So in Denpasar, I think there are some JCI accredited hospitals, institutional hospitals, and there's some decent. I know that some decent care I've heard about. I haven't been actually involved. I went to some hospitals with my girlfriend, and she was having some issues. And then over in Sanur, they built this internationally acclaimed hospital there that's supposed to be really nice, state of the art. So I think that's going to pick things up, but it's kind of been a lackluster reputation up until they built this new hospital over in Sanur. So we'll see how that plays out. And then so many people, they're going to go to Bangkok really for the out of this world healthcare. I know that happens a lot. People they'll leave Bali, go to Bangkok, and for a number of different reasons. Just as an aside, I had a few friends that got in situations where a girlfriend she wanted to go have an abortion. Abortion is actually illegal in Bali. So they went to Bangkok. Just go to Bangkok, really good care. It's close by. So I think that's kind of retarded or stunted the growth in the healthcare system and its quality. But for what I know, and I actually had a motorbike accident that really sort of mangled this finger a little bit, and I went to a clinic. They do have a number of these clinics around, these little doc in a box, although I didn't actually see a doctor, but these doc in the boxes, they're around, so they're accessible. So that actually boosts it up a touch. But I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. I think it can get better in that regard. I think they're more up and coming with the healthcare. I think in Denpasar, like I say, there are some decent doctors. I know a few people that had a little bit of surgery done in Denpasar. No complaints, everything went just fine. And they didn't really have a choice at the time in terms of going to Bangkok or someplace else. But I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. I think that's warranted. But I think that can improve among these things. A lot of these things can go down more so than up, but I think this one can go up. And then we're gonna talk about access to healthy food, which I mentioned a little bit. They do have a number. There's such an emphasis on health there, which I really love. Fitness, health. It's passed on to these restaurants like the Motion Cafe I mentioned. Number of different restaurants. All the gyms have really outstanding cafes that are really clean and really healthy. So for that reason, that really bumps it up a lot. A lot of people eat at what they call the local warungs. I mean, the warungs, you're gonna have cheaper food, and maybe the sourcing of the food's okay, but I just wonder a lot of times what they're cooking the food in. So I just like not to take a chance. And even though it's a bit more expensive, I go to the healthy places like the Motion and other places. But you have a fair number of those places to choose from. And a lot of people are trying to do it, or trying to mimic what Motion does or other places. And they're trying to pull it off maybe in a cheaper way, trying to kind of backdoor it. And that's kind of easy to spot a lot of the time. But based on that, on Motion and the other places that are available, and sort of the emphasis on being healthy, I gave it an 8 out of 10, which may be a little strong now that I'm thinking about it, because the Warungs are really where a lot of people eat, but I wouldn't necessarily call those healthy. And there is, like I said, more of a lack of just fruit, vegetable stands, just curbside or street side places you can get fresh fruit and vegetables. You end up going to those grocery stores. So I'm giving it an 8, but as I'm saying it, I'm feeling a little uneasy about it, but I'll stick with 8 where I landed on. And then let's go to, as I mentioned, the fitness culture, which is just, you got to say it's outstanding in Bali. I don't know that there's any place any better that really compares with it. A lot of places are trying to get on this train, this fitness-led expansion train, but I think Bali's been first. And they've had, just in Canggu there, they had the place I mentioned, Body Factory, which I live right next to it. It's just so convenient. I walked over there every day. And then another place named Nirvana, which is more, they have a lot of functional training, they have an outdoor space that's really nice. Their recovery is really outstanding, top-notch, couple of cold pools, steam room, sauna. One thing Body Factory doesn't have, a steam room, but they have a nice big sauna. They have a really, really cold pool, like an ice pool, about 4 degrees. Then they have a medium cold pool, 10 degrees. Then they have a warm pool. Then they have a big pool for everything else. And they have grass here. We can kind of chill out. So man, the gyms, they've really put a lot of thought into it, and it shows. And people, they migrate there really for the gyms in a lot of cases. I talked to a lot of people come in, they want to go to the gyms. And then there was a new place that just opened up called Reload. I've heard great things about it. I was just leaving there as it was opening, and they're trying to make, I think they made it, if you signed up early, you got a little bit cheaper price, maybe a little less than Body Factory. But another friend of mine who's there said it's popping. Everyone's kind of gone over there. I think that you get a lot of that new place opens and people just all flock to one new place. But I've heard it's outstanding. The equipment's brand new. It's outstanding. There's another new place that opened out toward Kadungu, which I'm trying to remember. Omni. They took it to another level. They brought in a lot of testing, they'll allow you to do a lot of testing, blood testing, labs, among other things, other types of physical testing that they'll include in your package. But their recovery is really nice. It's kind of modeled almost to me off of Body Factory, but you just have the saunas and you have the cold pools and the pool. The only thing I didn't necessarily feel great about is you're coming out of the pools and the cold pools and everything, and the sauna's right there on top, which Body Factory also has the same sort of setup, but it's not just necessarily as on top. But that's a minor nitpick. That's a nit. Everything else is really great. The food's great. It's kind of, and all the equipment's new. So you're not going to beat the fitness culture in Bali. It's off the charts, and so many fitness-minded people there. Uluwatu, they have one really nice place called Bamboo Fitness, and it's a really nice, top-notch place. I think they're going to try to open another new place. I've heard rumors that, because there needs to be a competitor for Bamboo. I think they've kind of been the only game in town for a while, and everyone is super crowded there. So I'm sure there'll be another place or two there that'll open sometime soon. And then the other bigger city that I mentioned, Sanur, which is on the other side. Sanur's got a whole different feel, really. It's, as I mentioned, Uluwatu's more mature, Canggu's younger. Well, Sanur's more, you're getting more in the senior citizen age. But not that there aren't younger people there as well, but you're going to see a lot of white hair out. You're going to see a lot of seniors out. And a lot of Australians pick Sanur, it seems. Run into a ton of Australians, but the gym scene there, I can't say the same. It's not great. There's one place kind of in the middle of the town called Paradise, but they're trying to kind of pull off something and do it in kind of a penny pinching way. I mean, you can tell they're treating nickels like manhole covers. I mean, it's tight there, because they tried to have a recovery pool. It was just this small little pool. It was disgusting after a while. No one went in there. They tried to have a sauna. No one would ever go in the sauna. Everything was kind of, hate to say, a half-ass sort of construction, or way they carried it out. But they do have a lot of equipment there, and the workout equipment, I must say, is good. A lot of good equipment there. So if you're getting good workouts, good, but there's really nothing else there. I mean, there are a few places that are just sort of low rent. So if you're talking about fitness culture, and you do have to kind of trifurcate it, if that's a word instead of bifurcate. Canggu, 10 out of 10. Uluwatu, probably with bamboo there, I could give it an 8.5, 9 out of 10. Sanua's going to bring the level down. I still gave it a 9.5, but if you're going to figure Sanur in there, which that would bring the whole, one apple would ruin the whole batch to some degree. So I think a 9.5 is warranted just if you're going to be in Canggu, Uluwatu, but just for the whole of it and just how trend setting it is, jet setting it is, I think I'll stick with 9.5, feel good about it. And then let's get to another one that's kind of a big bugaboo. It's air quality. And the big problem in Bali, I think I've noticed and I've heard from even the locals there that they lack the infrastructure really to get rid of all this trash they're generating. I think they're generating just an insane amount of trash every day. I forget the exact number, but it's, I don't want to quote something that's going to be way off, but I think it's almost, I want to say several thousand pounds of trash a day. So it's insane. And then, so what they do without this really proper infrastructure, they just burn a lot of trash. They're burning it at dawn and dusk, 5 to 8 in the morning, 5 to 8 at night. They're burning trash, and then you couple that with all the motorbike traffic. It's just, and then somehow it just seems to sit. They say in some ways, because of the wind currents or somehow the way the topography there, it just sits about face level, which I can attest to that as well. Sometimes I feel like I'm breathing in a lot of trash, and it's a really, the worst part of it, it's a really plastic infested trash they found. They're burning so much plastic stuff, and that's just all those microplastics are up in the air and they're flying about. So air quality can be really, really bad. Now, if you get outside of Canggu, maybe go out to Gadungu, the Sanur air quality is actually better. But Canggu, Uluwatu, I think the air quality is really pretty poor. And I think on a basis, now I didn't want to talk about Jakarta, we're going to talk about Jakarta, but Jakarta is supposed to be off the charts bad. I've never actually been to Jakarta. I've only heard secondhand stories, but the air quality is not great, and you have to figure that in. If that's something that is an issue for you, or one of your big bugaboos is to be in clean air. Now, what I love doing when I went there is I would love going up to Moonduk. Moonduk is up in the mountains, and I think it was probably about an hour and a half on motorbike, maybe a little less. But man, when you get outside of Canggu and you start getting up in the mountains, air gets cooler, and man, it gets so much cleaner, crisper, and you can just feel it. And you can feel like I can really breathe now. I can breathe in. And I love going up to Moonduk for a couple of days whenever possible. And they have these really nice cabins. They have some cabins that are called Moonduk cabins that are the nicest. They've been there a while, but man, they're really, really top notch. But you're going to pay, just depending, it's all dependent on the season, but you could pay 200 plus, even more for these Moonduk cabins. And they have other cabins. I've stayed there before, and newer cabins that were half the price, but really nice, beautiful views of the mountains, and just can't say enough about how much I enjoyed getting out to Moonduk. And you run out there, and I remember there was a place on the way that they make their own chocolate, get some of this dark cocoa, this 90 to 100% cocoa is really outstanding. I forget the name of that place too, but Moonduk is really nice. It's nice to get out, but you can tell the difference, man, when you get outside. It's like, man, how am I in that air? When you get back in, before you know it, it's kind of commonplace. But you're taking all this secondhand burning and plastic, and they've really tried to set some regulations in motion to stop it. It is illegal, but no one listens, no one cares. I mean, the Bali people there, they have their own sort of, it's not like it's a separate people group, but they're doing their thing. And they're not really, sometimes they're not jiving, they're not in line with whatever's going on with the Western expat community. And I knew some people that would try to talk to local people, hey, you know that's illegal, but they don't care about it. I mean, they need to burn their trash, so they're gonna do it. They're gonna have to build some new landfills, figure out some way to get some infrastructure in there. But with all that said, air quality, I'm going to go 6.5. But I think it's a bit generous, but it's taken into account the different places you can be in Bali. I'm not going to assume you're just going to be just in Canggu. That it's going to be a lower rating in Canggu. It's probably going to be a 4.5 in Canggu. In Uluwatu, it's probably going to be a 5.5. Sanua's probably going to be a 7. And then you get up to Moonduk. Well, Sanua's probably 6.5. Get up to Moonduk, you're looking at 8.5. And maybe even better, because you just don't have, but I just don't know about their infrastructure, how much they deal, the way they deal with the trash. Maybe they burn up there too as well. They probably do, but it's just not something I ever saw or encountered. But basing all that in, kind of aggregating it, I'm gonna give it a 6.5. Feeling a little bit generous, but I think that's fair. Now let's go on to outdoor recreation. Now, outdoor recreation, I'm kind of merging a couple of things when I say that, because I'm going to include the paddle in that, because that is a recreational, although they have some courts outdoors, but everyone tries to stay away from playing. You can play early or late, but a lot of times it's just too hot in the day. Just a real, stinker of a heater. But I'll include that, but there's not a lot of getting out and hiking. There's some, but it's not that accessible. And it's even hard a bit, I think, to walk around places. Sanur has the nice beach walk with the nice sidewalk, and they have some sidewalks. In Canggu, there's really a lack of sidewalk. You can't go out and you're not going to want to go out and just take a walk. It's just not set up for that. There are some sidewalks right through the main drag, but you could walk up and down that, I guess, for a lot of times you want to do it. But otherwise, the street's kind of right there, and then there's no sidewalk, and you're kind of walking with bikes coming right by you or cars. So it's not really set up in a lot of ways. And then I mentioned too, the beaches, to me, for Bali, you would think they would be a much higher level, but to me, they're a little less than they should be. Now let's go to Uluwatu, as I said, and then Sanur, they have the beach walk there, but say it's a whole different, they have a lot of nice hotels around. They have nice hotels in Canggu as well, but if you're really gonna get the nice beach time and nice hotel beach time, probably go to Uluwatu. Although in Nusa Dua is a really nice, there's the Intercontinental down there, which is really top notch, but there are other little bit lesser level places. You can go get a day pass, and it won't be much. I think you can probably get a day pass where you just have a spend. You have to spend maybe, I think 500,000, which maybe $30 would get you out there for a day pass. But you're on a really nice beach in Nusa Dua. Feels a little cooler down there, and it's sort of a little bit below Sanur, kind of more Sanur toward Canggu, but lower. Maybe I'll get it on the map here, be able to show you. But yeah, Nusa Dua is a really nice beach area. It's going to be from Canggu, it's going to take you, depending on traffic, anywhere from probably an hour to, it could take you a couple hours, even on a motorbike. It can get really crazy. But all that said, I'm going to give the outdoor recreation, even involving the paddle, because the paddle is so pervasive, so ubiquitous there, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 altogether. And that's being, I said, bumped up a little bit by the paddle, because a lot of people come in just to play paddle from all over. Especially a lot of guys come from the Netherlands. There are all kinds of groups from the Netherlands, from England, from Russia, Ukraine, all these different groups of people, these little cliques, they'll come in to play. Even people come in from Spain a lot. Spain, there's so many coaches there. A lot of them are coaches. They'll come in to be coaches for paddle, because paddle, I think it was actually birthed in Mexico way back in, I believe, the 70s or 80s, but Spain's the preeminent paddle power. Argentina's right there close, number 2. And then Italy's doing well, but I think a lot of countries are trying to catch up. But the Spain, they've been playing since they were kids, and they've been playing for a long time. So it's another level in Spain. But moving on to visa and bureaucracy, it's a bit nuanced, but I feel better about it than some people do. But I used actually an agency called Bali Solve to work on mine, and really made it a pretty easy process. But I had a 2-year visa, used to be called a D12 visa, if they still offer it. But yeah, it's really, I think I paid back then, I know it's gone up, but it was about 600 and some odd change in dollars. And that covered me for 2 years. I had to leave the country every 6 months. So it's a bit of a hassle. And if you don't want to overstay, because they charge you, I believe it's $1 million a day for every day you overstay. So I think I'd overstayed one day, a few days, maybe 3 or 4 days. So I had to pay 3 or 4 million right there, which would have been, what was that? Maybe $250, something on that, or 250 on 3 or 4. So that's something you got to watch. You got to keep track of it. And then they have a digital nomad visa. I think you have to make, I think it says 60,000 a year to qualify for that. Then there's a KITAS where you're working there, and they're really stringent about ensuring that you're actually following the letter of the visa. You're working, it's verified. They have immigration people to go out, and they're particular about it. They're stringent on it. So I think the KITAS you only have to make, maybe you have to make something on the order of a couple of $1,000s a month, maybe 2,000 to 3,000. And then they do have a retirement visa that starts at age 60. And so I think you can have this investor visa. I think investor visa is another class. But all that said, and then dealing with immigration at times, people have had some issues, even when everything in their visa is solid, there's no issue with it, but they come back and visa or immigration people pull them aside. I know people have had it happen to them, and they have to spend an hour or two at the airport just basically going through bureaucracy of everything's fine, there's nothing wrong. But coming into the airport there is pretty easy. It's really easy once you're with your visa. Most of the time, unless you get pulled over by immigration, you just pop your passport on the reader there and you're through. But then you have to go through the claiming of whatever they call it, I forget, where you have to fill out the form. That's a big hassle every time, and there's usually a big line for that every time, so you got to budget for that. But with all that said, and the fact that for the most part I feel like it's somewhat streamlined, I feel much better about it than I do Thailand. And although some people say Thailand's easier, but I haven't found that to be the case. Thailand to me is changing all the time, and it's like I say, there's more bureaucracy, more red tape involved, and you're just more in the unknown. I feel like with Bali, at least you get some certainty. Once you get your visa, you know what you have to do, and even though you have to leave in a lot of cases for these, although with a KITAS, I don't think you have to leave for a year, so it's better for a KITAS. But all that said, with all that taken into account, I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Could be a little bit better, could be a lot worse. And I think maybe I'm underestimating that a bit, maybe give it a 7.5, but I'm gonna stick at a 7 out of 10 because I think things have changed, and they do change periodically, but because I don't know if they still have that D12. I'd have to find out when I go back. But overall, I think judging from what I've heard from other people, I hear a lot about the visa issues, bureaucracy issues. And then you do have a certain amount, bureaucracy is actually pretty high there in a lot of cases. And in a lot of cases, I've known guys that actually run businesses there, and they feel like guys come around periodically, almost you want to call it a shakedown. They want to up this price, or almost these disparate groups. And there is a lot of corruption in Indonesia, a lot of corruption in the government, local governments. So that's always a bit of an unknown hanging. So actually, as I think about that, that's going to make 7 a really solid choice, because I think that does ding it. That brings it down a bit, as having that unknown, that lack of clarity when it comes to even to immigration, but also the bureaucracy, the guys that come around and they can shake you down a bit. And then in other places, like I mentioned, the guy that has a couple of paddle courts in Jakarta, it's more prevalent in Jakarta, but there's a bit of a gang factor where the gangs kind of come around. They want a little bit of, what do they call it in Naples? They call it the pizza, or the regular sort of price you pay to do business, that exists in parts of Jakarta. I don't know that it exists in Bali, and then in Bali you have the authorities. You never want to get on the other side of the authorities, I'll tell you that much. I've sort of heard so many horror stories about it, and they don't play around. If there's anything to do with drugs, man, you're in big trouble. I knew a girl that I think her boyfriend had sent her some hemp lotion or something like that, and they took her in and they drug her in for hours. She didn't end up having to do a whole lot there, but I think she paid a fine, and it was a big hassle, and she was really scared out of her mind. But there's another big story that went around about a guy that he owned a pizza shop there, and he had a manager who was taking care of, they picked up some cocaine at the airport, and it was a block of cocaine. They caught the manager guy. The other guy just fled, which was probably a smart move on his part, just to get out. But the other guy that got caught red-handed, there was talk of he was facing a firing squad, and it was no joke. Firing squad, or it was going to be a long time in jail. And I know another guy who I used to play paddle with. He was a big strapping guy, big Australian strapping guy. And he got in a situation in a bar one night, and he was breaking up a fight between a couple of guys, and one of the guys didn't like the fact that he interceded, and this guy, the big strapping guy, said, "Listen, man, you don't want any of this." And he didn't. The guy had to be drunk or out of his mind to want anything, to have anything to do with this guy. But the guy said, "You don't want any of this, just leave me alone." He left the bar. The guy confronted him outside. They ended up in a little bit of a scrap. The guy hit him, broke his jaw. The Australian guy that hit the guy, it was really pressing him as an issue, but he ended up having to pay a large sum. I'm not gonna say how much, but it was a 6-figure sum of money, which luckily he had, to avoid jail time, or he was gonna be looking at 5 years in jail. So the authorities, man, you wanna stay clear of it. That's a bit of an issue. I could put that in the bureaucracy category and feel like, man, that's even bringing down. But if you stay clean, you stay away from any controversy and you'll be fine. But just know that that's out there. You don't want to step out of line, because you'll feel it. And I'm gonna go, the next one is people assimilation. And for this, the Bali people, they're up there, I have to say, in my top 3. I think the Filipino people, I think, are the best. They're really such fun-loving, just always happy people, no matter what their circumstances. In a lot of ways, it's the same for the Thai people and the Balinese people. And the Thai people, I put it too, the Balinese people are right there. They're really nice. The ultimate currency is a smile. I mean, you just smile and everyone, it breaks down any of their defenses or anything. You used to meet someone on the street, just smile at them and everything's great. I mean, they're really fun-loving. They're great people. They all seem to love their karaoke. They seem to go really wild with their karaoke, but it's just a little bit funny in Bali. There's a little bit more. For instance, they constantly ask you, I can't tell you how many times you might get asked today, where are you from? I think it's just a way to make small talk. But there's a little bit of an angle at times. You feel like there's some other agenda involved. I'm not casting aspersions, but it's just a different feel you get from Filipino people. You walk around, if you don't want to talk, you don't need to talk, or you don't feel like there's any agenda whatsoever. And I don't know what the agenda would be with the Balinese people. I think they're really, really nice, great people, but I think that's a big plus. And I think the assimilation is obviously going to be easy if you're coming from another country, especially a Western country or a European country, anywhere in Western Europe, even Eastern Europe. If you're coming in, there's going to be a lot of people that are from your same country. There's people there from everywhere. So you can assimilate in a way, if you want to, through that route, get into people that are like you, and then you assimilate with the rest of the community. But the community around paddle, no matter where you're from, it's a really vibrant, fun, connected community for the most part. It can get a little bit cliquish. People trying to, if you're playing a certain level and they don't want to play with people this level, that gets a little bit cliquish. People take that pretty seriously. People get really addicted to the paddle. They take everything so serious. Some of them, not all of them. But that can be a bit of a drag. But otherwise, there's so many different places you can go to chill out, meet people organically. It's just, and the attitude of everyone there, all the Westerners, all the Europeans, the attitude is just really open. I mean, you can just have conversations. You meet someone, before you know, you have a conversation for an hour with someone, and it's just laid back. There's it's very entrepreneurial spirit. People are really into doing business, and just a great vibe there in general with the people, and then just with all the expats. But I gave it an 8 out of 10 overall. You get the only thing that really dings it or knocks it down is, and I'm gonna get to this in the next one, but there's some, like I said, things get a bit cliquish. They can get a bit over the top in terms of, it can be a bit edgy when you go out, and it could be, I wanna say, maybe a bit sort of Instagram, maybe a little bit over the top with the influencer Instagram sort of vibe. Just my take. A lot of people would say the same thing, that especially in the gyms, it can get that way. So things a little bit, and there's a little bit of, but I'll say in Bali, it's really funny because you won't see, I've never been anywhere where you see so many guys walking around shirtless. I mean, they're going to eat in restaurants there. Hey, more power to them. If you want to, obviously you feel really comfortable, and you can do that. No one's going to say anything to you, unless it's a mid-level and up, but you just go in cafes, and so many times guys just walking around everywhere shirtless. They just feel good there. And that's something unique really to Bali, I think. It's sort of a Tarzan kind of mentality that's cool. And the women, they can walk around in bikinis anywhere. And that's, no one is going to say anything, or no one's going to frown at it. And in many ways, it's kind of, in some ways it's kind of cool, because it's kind of, they call it Bali breezy. Everybody's sort of doing their own thing. I mean, that's going to lead me into the next one. But for people assimilation, I've given it an 8 out of 10. I think that's fair with everything I'm discussing. But leading that into the last one, which is expat community and dating, I think you can, and I say this from perspective, I ended up having a girlfriend there a lot of the time, and so I wasn't necessarily out there on the streets searching as much. But I know so many guys that are telling me that in a lot of ways, I think it's shifted now. From what I've just heard from a friend of mine actually a couple days ago, is there, he's been dating for a while there. He's kind of just given up on this dating scene there. He thinks, and a lot of people he knows, the guys, the Western guys, are saying the same thing. They're just out of it. He now has a Balinese girlfriend, and so it's more of a down-to-earth kind of experience. Because he said it's just so, the other, with all the Westerners and all the, like I said, the influencer maybe that's having an effect on it, but it's just sort of transient. And that's sort of the Bali breezy thing. You're transient, you're just kind of flowing. You run into someone, you get with them for a little bit, you get to someone else. That's the idea of it, that's the ethos of it. But so that dings it a little bit. And I think he says it's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. He knows a lot of guys that have gone the same route. And I knew a lot of guys as well that ended up going with a Balinese girlfriend. I never dated a Balinese girl there, but they're really nice and they're really cool. I didn't go in that direction. I was like, I happened to meet some Western girls. I had this girlfriend who was a Western girl, but in a lot of ways, it was easy fit in that regard. I didn't know how it would be in terms of fit, but he says it's actually really cool, really easy with the Balinese girl. I knew a lot of guys, like I say, I knew a couple of guys that were from the Netherlands that dated almost exclusively the Balinese girl. I think it was just an endless supply, and they have a little bit of extra cachet to them as a foreign guy for the Balinese women. At least that's what I've heard. That's what I've seen actually play out. But so you've got a little bit of an edge there if you want to dip into that market. But if you're dipping into kind of the transit Bali breezy kind of Western market, I think it's kind of a dog-eat-dog world out there. It's survival of the fittest. But if that's the game you want to play, it's there. I knew a lot of guys that would come in, and they even came in from other places, and that was the game they were there to play. And there's some big places in Uluwatu. I forget the name of the big club there right on the beach that's famous. But man, you can go there, and guys, they would go there often, and they would say they never came away empty-handed. So there's opportunity really for anything, I think, there. And then the expat community, if you get into a community, there are a lot of different ways to do it. I said the paddle is such an easy route, and there's not a lot of tennis there, but a lot of paddle. But maybe you play tennis, maybe you play another sport, or just other really ways to get in with community. I know a lot of guys, a couple of guys I know, they'd have dinners with just guys. They'd have like a man's dinner, or they'd have like an entrepreneurship dinner where the guys would sit around and talk. All kinds of ways to plug in there if you want, and it's available. And I say everyone's so open, and people really, they feel chill there for the most part. So all of that together, I gave it an 8 out of 10, dinging it a little bit for kind of the current dating atmosphere there, but otherwise everything's pretty cool. And so we're going to get to the overall vitality score. Taking all that into account, we land with all those together, cumulative 7.4 out of 10. I feel that's fair. I think it's some factors I feel like are going to get better, some factors I feel like are going to get worse. I hope the cost of living thing gets, to me, that's a big minus at this point, because it used to be such a great plus. Maybe that's why I'm a little more jaded about it. I feel like, man, I got to go back there and spend all this cash just to live there and kind of survive and exist there. Overall, though, it's a 7.4, but I think it's more, I don't know if you'd want to, I know so many guys, they've built a house, or they've gotten into real estate, they're going to be there long term. I think if you're going to be somewhere long term, I'd want to be outside the main city centers, just for that air quality. I think the air quality would drag on you after a while, but you can live a really healthy life there. You can have all the food you want that's good, all the food is healthy, and I think you could you can feel really great being there for a while, I think. But I know some guys, like I say, they're going to be there for long term. But 7.4 is where we are with Bali. Bali's a great place, love it. I think it's supposed to be the #1 honeymoon destination now, which surprises me a little bit. But I think it's right there with the Maldives and some other place. But you can go there a bit more of a budget. I know obviously the Maldives, but you can do a lot of different things. You can see a lot of different things. I think you've seen some of the pictures I have of the different waterfalls you can trek to, and you can get out in the jungle, you can get up in the mountains, you can get on other islands, like there's Limbagan. I've been out to Limbagan, that's really cool. When you go out there, you're not gonna have a lot of options as much with food or some of the other conveniences, but it's such a beautiful spot. There's Lombok, which I never went to, but I did hear it's more Muslim out there, which I did want to touch on a little bit. They say it's not quite as friendly, but you do have the Hindu influence there. They have Nippi there, which happens every year for one day where everything's kind of shut down. No one's on the streets, no one's supposed to be on the streets, and the police are regulating you stay at home. So for one day, you don't do anything, you just chill out, stay at home. It's kind of cool. I think you can kind of decompress, turn off completely. And I know a lot of guys that have been there for 8-9 years says that they love it every year. They don't get tired of it. They think it's a great time. They look forward to it. So it's called Nippi, and I think it's in March, I believe. But yeah, you have in the other Hindu festivals, seem like something always is going on with the festivals, the parades. I don't know, obviously, not obviously, but I don't really know what's going on with all the Hindu. But there is a different feel there in terms of sort of the ethos of the place, because you see all these, I don't know, demon caricatures of whatever they are. I think in Hindu, they think there's thousands of gods, but they have all these gods that are statues. So it's always kind of lurking about. It's a lot of different temples. I don't know what's going on there, but it's kind of a different feel to it. So it's something you may pick up, you may not. I just picked it up sort of over time. I didn't necessarily go in thinking I'm going to notice this, and then I sort of felt, I don't know, it felt a little different. I'm not going to say it felt oppressive, but it felt different. In a lot of ways, it could feel like a bit of a drag at times, but rarely did I personally feel that way. But that's where we are in Bali. I think I'll come back and I'll hit a couple other things on Bali, maybe in a couple of shorts, just to follow up and maybe finish out anything I didn't cover here. But that's where we are in Bali. You got to go over there if you haven't. If you have, you know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about. And it's a great place. Go over there, work out, do the paddle, but do a variety of things. Like I said, go to Moonduke, and even going up north now, people are getting more into that. Lavina, there's Ahmed, which is way up there on the top, but I think at some point it's going to get popped. They always talk about they're going to put an airport up north around close to Ahmed. When they do that, I'm sure it's going to really pop. Maybe it's a good idea to, if you're going to do the land real estate thing, get up there before the crowd gets up there. I think a lot of people try to do that. They try to guess where the crowd's going to be next, just like Kadungu. But that's where we are. And subscribe to Health Max Abroad. Love doing this. It's going to be a lot of fun. So much more great information upcoming. A lot of great nutrition, mental health information that you're already seeing that I'm doing. So subscribe, please, and do the notifications, the whole bit. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you in the next one.